Wow, well, this is our last art class for the whole entire school year, and you won't be at school with us next year. You'll be somewhere else having a new adventure in your education, so I'll miss you, but maybe you'll do this one last project. We're going to work on eyes again, only this time we're going to work on black paper. So when you're gathering your supplies, I'm hoping that you have black paper. It can be construction paper if you have a lot of art supplies. I don't know, maybe you do. You might have matte board, which is what we put around pictures when we frame. Maybe you have some black matte board. Maybe you have black construction paper or cardstock that's black. You might have charcoal paper. So try to find some black paper if you can. If not, we'll just do it on white. And you're going to need a pencil and colored pencils. So any of you who might have the more expensive colored pencils called Prismacolor, those are awesome, and let's try to use those. If you don't have those, just whatever you have is fine, and we'll make an eye, maybe your eye or maybe somebody else's, on black paper. So I'll see you here in just a minute. Okay, here we go. This is a drawing of an eye that I made some time ago using colored pencil on black paper. And I wasn't really looking at a picture for this, I was just kind of inventing the eye out of my imagination. But there are a few things that I want to point out to you on the eye. The first one, and the most important I think, is that the eyelid always, unless you're really scared or startled and your eyes are open super wide, the eyelid always cuts over a portion of the iris. This colored part is called the iris, and as you know, this is the pupil. So your lid always wants to cut part of the circle of the iris away. And then down here, sometimes you see a little white showing below, and sometimes you don't. The second important thing is that the eye is not completely almond shaped. We always want to just do kind of like an almond and then call it an eye. But the corners in here of the white part actually kind of, sometimes they even look like they square off a little bit, so it changes the shape of the eye. And then two other important things. One is you want to have highlights happening on the pupil here to show, and on the iris to show reflection, so that it gives the eye a rounded shape. It's not just flat, it gives it some dimension, some curve. I know it's hard to see with the pencil, but curve outwards when you have highlights. And on this in particular eye, there are quite a few. There are lots of little flecks, plus there's kind of like, almost looks like a film, but it is actually a reflection on the eye. And last of all, your eyelashes. Notice how they don't all go in one direction like a clown or a supermodel or something, a mascara ad. They're sparse. They're not as much here in the corner maybe on this eye, and they're going in different directions. So we have some this way, some that way, flick, flick, flick. Okay, so those are things that are going to help your eye seem more realistic. So what I need for you to do today is to find in a magazine, or magazines usually easier because those are professionally taken photographs that are nice to tear out and use. Sometimes you can find something really large, or you can go online like I did today, and I googled male human eye because I wanted to draw a man's eye. So I'm going to find a new sheet of paper, and if you don't have black paper, don't worry about it. You can still do this on white paper and just use a pencil. I'm using today Prismacolor colored pencils. Whatever brand you have is fine. I use Prismacolor because you can really layer a lot, and they have a nice waxy sheen when they're done, so it's a nice pencil to use. So the eye that I'm looking at is, I'm going to do it as big as I can on this page, but it is not super open and round. It's a man's eye, and a lot of times, a lot of the men's eyes that I see, they're actually, it's almost like they're smaller. I don't know. Do you guys have smaller eyes than your moms or sisters? Check it out. I'm not sure. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with an eyelid, and I'm going to hope that you can see this. Yes, good. Okay. So I'm taking the eyelid all the way across, and pay attention to the curve. How steep is the curve? Is it, very rounded, or is it a little bit flattened out like this? That's what this eye that I'm looking at has. And then it comes down on the corner over here. It's going to get lost under some eyelashes there. And then we come over here. I'm leaving a little gap there at the corner. And this is the lower lid. It actually curves up and then comes down like this. And again, my person here does not have a very open eye. So I'm just doing very light sketchy marks. And I'm going to stop right there. I like to leave the ends open initially when I first start doing an eye. Okay, now in this case, remember how I told you that the top and the bottom of the iris are cut off by the lids? So in mine, the iris would be coming all the way up here over the top, but since it's cut off, it shows up about here. Like that, and it's actually cut off on the bottom and on the top. But to get the right shape, sometimes I draw the whole thing above the lid like that, so that I don't accidentally have like a weird shape that's not really round and it looks squashed down. So I kind of sometimes just lightly sketch where the bottom would be so that I know. Can you see how I did right here and right up there? But eventually those are going to be covered up by these pencils, so or if you're using a regular pencil, you can erase it. I like to use a really light color when I'm doing black, and it doesn't have to be anything to do with the finished color. This is a pale yellow, and I could cover it with anything. There's a lot of pink in the eye, so I may be covering it with that. And you'll see that you're going to do a lot of adjustments as you go. So right in here already I want to make a change and actually cut this eyelid down a little lower like that. And if you feel comfortable, you can try drawing an eye without a photograph. You can kind of invent it. Don't beat yourself up if your eye that you made does not look like the drawing or the photograph that you picked. As long as it looks like a human eye, it's okay. Right now we're going for a realistic eye, more so than we're going for like a portrait where we can tell whose eye it is. Okay, now over here, the white part of the eye actually kind of cuts up like this. And over here on the back side, the white part of the eye kind of comes down here. And then we need to leave the thickness of the skin. So this line right here represents the area where the eyelashes are going to grow, but actually the skin around the eye has a thickness to it. So I'm going to do kind of like a double line. So I'm cutting off even more of the iris so that we can show thickness of the skin. Okay, now sometimes you see a little thickness right up here on the top, so you can put that in. Looks kind of weird, huh? And let's put in the pupil. In this case, my person must be looking at a bright light or into the sun, so the pupil is on the small side. I feel like if you do a pupil too small, it looks a little kind of crazy and psycho. So if it's too small and it looks weird to you, you can always enlarge it. You want to be careful of where you're putting it. Look at your image or your person that you're copying from and decide, is it right in the center? How far down does it come? Because the lid might be cutting off enough that this would actually be up a little higher. So we're going to just position it here, and again, you can always adjust later. And that's it for the basic structure of the eye itself, but then we need a little eyelid. So this guy has little eyelid that kind of comes up over the top here like this. You know, when you look at somebody, there are folds. It's not like there's just nothing happening there. There's a fold of skin where the eye opens and closes right here, and then it fades away here. Actually, mine comes out a little bit farther. It's going to fade away here. And then underneath the eye, we have a few little, they're not wrinkles so much as creases. This is a younger person, it looks like. He doesn't have a lot of wrinkles yet, but he does have a few little creases under the eye here, so let's put those in. Okay, so that's the basic shape. Now, eyelashes are totally last. Don't even think about eyelashes at all yet. So I know sometimes we get excited about wanting to have nice, beautiful eyelashes on there, but we're putting those in last. So the next part of this whole section that I'm teaching you is I'm going to speed it up and stop talking, and I'm just going to start having fun of adding the color on here. When you're using colored pencils, remember you can layer. So if you're putting white over here, layer in some other colors, like maybe some grays, because if you look closely at your picture, you'll see that the white of the eye is really not really very white. There's a lot of other colors in there. So we'll come back to that a little bit more later. For now, I'm just going to concentrate on getting some color in here for you. Okay guys, can you see how much layering there is? I have quite a long way to go still on this eye, and I may even want to make some adjustments on the shape over here. I've been drawing this, or actually I've been making the video now for 28 minutes, and luckily I sped up most of that so that you don't have so long to sit here and watch, but I have a long way to go on this. So drawing an eye realistically is a really detailed process. And of course I don't expect you to do all this or even have these pencils, but whatever pencils you do have, just notice how many different layers of color I did in there. And so the things that I haven't done on this eye yet are give it any highlight. So I'm going to come in with this white pencil and create some areas of highlight as I see in the picture here that I'm looking at, my sample picture. And this is going to help the eye start to get a more of a rounded feel and not so flat. But if I showed you this picture in another hour, there would be a huge amount of difference as I add to it. But I am not by any means going to make you sit here and watch this happening for an hour. But already just having these little highlights in here, I think is starting to make the eye look more rounded. So make that be a big part of what you're doing on your eye, is creating those highlights. There might even be a little fleck. Whoops, sorry. My phone is ringing. There might even be a little fleck here and there in the center. I don't want to do too much there because the sample that I'm looking at does not have really anything covering the pupil. But let's do, now that we did that, let's do a little bit with the eyelashes and then let's call it quits for right now. Just know that I'm going to go back and do a lot more to finish this up. So the eyelashes on this man kind of almost come down in front of the eye. They're not curled up or his eye is not super open. So I'm going to start with this corner in here and pay attention to where they grow from when you look at your picture. They're not way down here by the white. They're up a little bit more in your skin color. So you're just going to do some little hits. And it's good if you don't have them all evenly spaced because they're not. There's gaps. And then here, when the eye is coming right forward towards you, you don't see a lot of the eyelashes. They almost get really thin right in here, and maybe a couple are sprouting up higher in his eyelid. But then as we cross over to this side of here, let's put a few little just almost like dots right here. Then as we cross over to this side of the eye, they start growing longer again, but still they're all coming down. They're not going up high. They're not up here. It's also nice to use colors like I'm using a black, but you could use a really dark brown. Unless somebody's really looking, they're not going to be able to tell what color you've chosen. So I'm going to carry these down over, and I would have normally done all the skin color almost filling up this whole page like I did on this one so that the eyelashes show up, but I just didn't have time to go out that far on this guy. So the eyelashes would normally come over in this area here, but we're not going to be able to see that because I'm not done. And then on the bottom I'd have a lot more skin color down here, so I'm not going to do all these eyelashes. Remember to leave the thickness of that skin and sprout the lashes from about here and let their curve be different for all of them. Maybe some are a little longer, maybe some are a little closer together, farther apart. He doesn't really have very many over there. So that's it. We're going to be done with that. Like I said, there's a lot more to do on this eye, but you get the basic feeling of it. I hope that you try it and that you enjoy it, and try it with some color. I mean, we've done a lot of stuff with just pencil drawings, but how about some color drawings? So anyway, thank you very much for a great year. It's been fun getting to know you, and it's been fun teaching this last class, well, all the classes, but I really do like drawing eyes. So it's been fun, and good luck to you in whatever you're doing, whatever school you're going to. I hope you stay in touch, and take care.